The story of labour legislation is of one written in blood. In part 1 of this mini-series we examined the Huscar pit disaster, which contributed significantly to major labour legislation. In part 2 we're going to take a look at another tragic event which paved the way for labour law we take for granted today. So join me as we look at this part of Yorkshire's hidden history. We're in Kirkheaton now, a village just outside Huddersfield. The Colne Bridge Mill was built in 1775 by Thomas Atkinson, who also owned Bradley Mills in Huddersfield. About 80 people worked there, and it was normal for the machines to run day and night to maximise those sweet profits. On the morning of the 14th of February 1818, at about 5 AM, 26 girls were working in the factory. A young boy named James Thornton was sent into the carding room. Carding is the process whereby the material is pulled between fine metal combs in order to make the fibres straight and stick together into little strands, called rovings. As you can see, this creates a lot of fluff and excess material, and when James went into the room on that fateful morning to collect the rovings, he was carrying a naked flame. This is puzzling, as according to a contemporary account in the Leeds Mercury, there was a glass lamp provided for safety, but for whatever reason James went down with a naked flame. An overseer saw him and raced after him, but as the article reports, in vain, for just as he was entering the lower room he saw the flames rising. He ran upstairs to warn everyone and escaped out of the building, but the fire was so rapid that a girl who followed him fell through the floor and perished in the fire. All of this happened within the space of 2 minutes. Flames raced through the building, setting several £1,000s worth of cotton alight. Rescuers couldn't reach the windows with ladders, and so the children were trapped inside. The entire building collapsed in half an hour. Of the 26 girls working that morning, only 9 escaped. 17 girls, all aged between 9 and 18, died. The bodies of the dead were in such a state that they couldn't be identified by their parents and were buried in a communal grave here. At the inquest, nobody was prosecuted. 9 days after the fire, Sir Robert Peel was so shocked that he moved forward the second reading of his Cotton Mills and Factory Act, the first piece of legislation to regulate the hours and conditions of children in factories. Like the Mines Act of 1842, the changes are only small and there was a long way to go, but it was still very important. Under the Factory Act of 1819, which only applied to cotton mills, children under the age of 9 were not to be employed. Those between the ages of 9 and 16 could work a maximum of 12 hours a day, and children were not to work at night. This was a rather watered-down version of the original proposed by philanthropist Robert Owen in 1815, which faced considerable objection and failed to pass. The original regulations applied to all textile mills, not just cotton, raised the age to 10 and reduced working hours to 10. However, realising the significant opposition, Peel made certain concessions in order to get it passed. This might strike us as a little cowardly, but he was simply aware of what was feasible amidst the political atmosphere of the time. In fact, it would take until 1847 for 10-hour working days to come into law, and 1874 for children under the age of 10 to be banned from working. As much as this was a landmark piece of legislation, there was still a long way to go, and it would take some time before campaigners were finally able to bring in safe working conditions. At the funeral service, the whole packet reported, "Such was the anxiety and sympathy of every description of persons to obtain admittance, that the windows of the edifice were completely surrounded on the outside by a great concourse of people. We have seldom witnessed a congregation who appeared more deeply impressed with a sense of the solemnity of the occasion. It is computed that no less than 4,000 persons were present." 3 years later, in 1821, this memorial was erected, a lasting testament to the victims of an unnecessary and tragic industrial disaster. I hope you've enjoyed this video, I hope you've learnt something new, and hope to see you again soon.